Hello everybody, it is me, Postmodern Cowboy, and I'm here with a quick update on Nebulous Fleet Command. We've seen some awesome new content out of Eridana Studios this past week. There's been an update to Nebulous Fleet Command. It is the first major update since the game came out, about, 4 or 5 months ago now? Actually 6 months, I think. And it's called the Modular Missiles update. So the Modular Missiles update adds a whole bunch of new mechanics and physics and gameplay elements designed to make the missile content much more detailed and much more customizable. So I'm gonna jump into that right here by way of an introduction to the Modular Missile update. I'm gonna talk about a fleet that I put together after a little bit of testing on some multiplayer servers. Managed to get into a multiplayer match and did not too badly. We did wind up winning, but it took me a couple days of messing around with the various options to get something that I could play with. So yeah, this is this fleet is called the Squad. It is a combination light cruiser and other small ship fleet. We've got a light cruiser, a destroyer, frigate, and a corvette. And if you'll notice, I've configured them in this linear order because the ships, of course, enter the playfield backwards. So that means the corvette, which is a spotting ship, will be closest to the enemy as soon as we warp in. And the cruiser, which is the most important ship with the heaviest firepower, is going to be furthest away. This is going to reduce the chance that early on in a match, the enemy is going to be able to get a critical hit on my cruiser, keeps the ships together, and, again, if you're someone who plays well, you'll be changing your formations fairly frequently. But this is a strong entry formation. We've got a missile frigate up front, maybe to provide a little bit more signature, and a destroyer. This is actually a screening destroyer, so I'm going to talk about its role when I go through the ship. But first, of course, the update. The easiest way to explain what they've done is to say that all of the old missiles now are templates. They are, that the Thunderhead, the Hurricane, the old Riposte missile. This that you see in front of you, the SGM-111 Taval, is a revisitation of the Riposte missile, that Class 1 anti-missile missile, with some tweaks. And they do now allow you to make tweaks, which is really interesting. You can choose how the missile seeks its target. You can choose the kind of warhead that the missile contains. You can choose whether it's direct guided or has cruise guidance. And you can set the total amount of fuel by playing with this slider, which of course influences the flight characteristics of the missile, but also even more detailed flight characteristics by dragging this little reticle around the sort of balance triangle to fine tune. So I've got a missile here that has a fragmentation blast warhead, uses direct guidance, is command guided, and has a balance between its top speed and its maneuverability, but it's only striking to 2,500 meters out. Comparing that to the same platform, but this is not an anti-missile missile, that the Shillelagh, the SGM-112 Shillelagh, is a more intended as like a direct fire rocket analog. This is something that you're going to launch a swarm of at very close range, within about 4 kilometers of your target, and it's going to do substantially more damage with an HE impact, but it's also likewise command guided and direct. And then even under direct, you can choose whether the weapon is offensive or defensive, whether it prioritizes a class 1, 2, or 3 missiles. We haven't even talked about the missile classes yet. And whether it launches cold, or whether it fires its engines inside the cell as it's launching. And that will influence the speed with which a missile launches, but also how much available fuel it has and how it maneuvers when it leaves the vessel. These are all really, really... You can even choose the color of your missile. So when people see them in space, they've got different color base stripe. Like that is creative stuff. I'm astonished, amazed, and inspired by this update. And again, here's just a different take on with slightly more fuel. And this is an anti-missile missile. I believe this is intended to fire about 6.5 kilometers out at incoming. If I double check, so this is actually firing at incoming class 3 missiles. So if there's ship killer missiles, the hypersonic missiles that are multi-stage, we're going to talk about those in a second. This will engage them up to 7 kilometers, which is for most of them beyond the sprint distance for that design. So I'm pretty stoked about this. Okay. And I've designed the SGM-212 guy. This is, I have 58 of these on my ships on my fleet. 48 of the Shillelagh, 60 of the Taval, only 18 of the Telim, because those are only going to be launched when you have incoming class 3 missiles. So you don't need a bunch. You just need them on standby in some cells, and they can auto launch, and they'll further reduce threats. And this, again, I'm not using on my fleet anti-missile point defense for the class 3s. That's quite an expensive upgrade. I'll talk about that and what they've added. But I am using these Talim, and the guy is just almost like a Thunderhead. Like it's in this case fixed semi-active radar seeker, so it's going to home in on a continuous wave radar illumination. So it involves target painting. But if you target paint and launch these, you're going to get a bunch of hits, provided you're burning through EWAR and stuff like that. And then I've designed the Hurley, of which we've got 10. And this is at 19 points. It's a fairly expensive, but actually like modestly priced class 3 missile. That is multi-stage, so it's got a burn section that's going to have maximum maneuverability to get up and around the ship and on targets, and it's only going to cruise at 100 meters per second for about 8 kilometers, and then for its last 5 kilometers, it's going to sprint at very fast speed, but also a good distance, putting it outside the range of a lot of the class 1 missiles, so it should sprint past those. My own, the Talim, would intercept these, but it's HE impact. It's not the kinetic penetrator, so it's not too expensive a warhead, and it's also a fixed anti-radiation. It's not. The other one is a what did I say? It's the semi-active radar seeker, and this is the anti-radiation seeker. So this can definitely be decoyed, but it's harder to decoy these. And it's going to look at the radiated energy of a target. Okay, so this is just a little intro, and you got all your classics here. You got your Gales, your Hurricanes, your Squalls, your Thunderheads, your Reposts still available to you. But you can also get these like absolutely bonkers. 33 point. What do I have in a 33 point blackjack? I load the template. This is it's black. It's called a blackjack. This missile, again, maximum maneuverability. But however, I go with maximum top speed, so its sprint phase is 1,000 meters a second. It's using HE impact again. If I put on the kinetic penetrator, it bumps up to 42 points. It's probably one of the more expensive missiles that you can create. I think 50 or 60 points is the most expensive. Actually, it is not the most expensive because I can put on cruise guidance. It's using electro-optical, and I guess I could give it anti-radiation as well. So there, it's got 2 guidance modules and perk of radar absorbent coating. It's harder to detect on your radar. So this missile at 44 points could cripple a ship in 1 or 2 hits. It's going to fly in, it's going to home in on the engines, the communications, like something crucial, have really good target validation, and do a lot of damage, penetrate a large ship, and you can give away points. Using the cruise guidance, you can give away points around an asteroid or something like that. So like this is almost like its own ship. Like it's a real augmentation to your fleet. Anyway, I don't have any of these on my fleet because they are it's hard to explain, but they're quite expensive, and I've balanced my fleet around a few key features. We're going to talk about those now. So I'm going to start off with my intel ship because it's sort of the backbone of the fleet, performing the most important capability, which is spotting the enemy. This is an electronics warfare fleet at its core. So there's a guide on YouTube. I'll post a link down in the comments. It is very difficult to get a spyglass radar onto a Corvette because they're so goddamn power hungry. Look at this thing, power 100%, and a lot of empty slots, no armament, basic CIC. It's got 2 plant control centers, and you have to have a berthing because it turns out you need extra crew to make this thing work. And it's got the regular micro reactor, and the only way to fit the spyglass on is if you go with the whiplash drive, which gives this thing an excellent top speed. It's fast at 42, where is it here? 42 meters per second. Yeah, so it's fast, but the enemy can spot it fairly easily. It doesn't have any offensive capabilities. It doesn't have any defensive capabilities. It is just a spy ship, but as the backbone of a fleet, reliant on finding and fixing the enemy before engaging, this is the most important ship by far. And, when I played, I'll say it was the first one to die. The EWAR frigate, really simply, is just a bunch of missile launchers. So I've got, VLS 46s. These are new. VLS 46 missile launchers launch Class 1 missiles, but they have 46 cells. So you can get real, like if you put 3 of these in a ship, you'd launch so many Class 1s in a single go. So for both anti-missile defense, like riposte style, or as I was with the Shillelagh, the more like semi-guided rocket style, that's pretty good. I like those. And we do have a VLS 2 on here as well. This is a Class 2 missile launcher for the GE. And we've got a jammer. We've got a hang-up jammer. Hang-up jammer will block communications, preventing targets from receiving track data from other sources. So to put this in perspective, my intel ship is providing track data to the rest of my fleet. If someone were to put a communications jam on another ship in this fleet or on this ship, it wouldn't be able to receive the track data from the intel ship. What does that mean? It means that very quickly your intelligence starts to fall apart and you get blind spots. Certain ships can't see certain targets that they might otherwise be in a position to engage. So you get to be a little bit selective. I found the most effective tactic so far is just primarying a target with all EWAR, overloading them, pumping missiles into them, and then moving on to the next target. That seems to work fairly well with this fleet as a tactic. It's a little bit overpowered, if you ask me. A lot of these compartment slots are empty. You got to pick and choose. This fleet comes in at exactly 3,000 points. I didn't spare any expense. I really super optimized everything as much as I could. So this doesn't have any bonuses. It really is just carrying a jammer and some launchers. Frontline radar does have a launcher deluge system to keep the missiles from cooking off, and the radar drive. So the other 3 ships in the fleet all operate with the radar drive, and that gives them extra flank speed. So this is a fleet that, rather than hiding, is going to burn from position to position, using that extra thrust to close the distance between themselves and cover. Not between themselves and the enemy, between themselves and cover. they'll poke up from behind cover, they'll jam targets, they'll launch, they'll duck down behind cover. That's the idea. The screening destroyer, I've featured this one in a number of fleets. Also has a jammer. It's using the blanket jammer, so this is something that's going to overload radar, making missiles in point defense systems work less good. So both offensively, jamming to prevent the enemy's point defense from locking onto my missiles, but also defensively to prevent enemy missiles from locking onto me or other ships in the fleet. This is useful. And it does have some missiles in a rack. I chose to go with the Spinal VLS-2 launcher, which for some reason, despite looking like it should have more slots, has very few slots. I guess that's a balance thing. I don't know. But again, radar drive, frontline radar, nothing too special. Does have damage control, small DC, damage control central. This is and Defender PDT. So why did I go with the Defenders as opposed to the new offerings? They're cheap. At 15 points, they're the cheapest. Rebounds are pretty cool, but they're at 20 points. I was looking today, by the way, at some new Rheinmetall anti-drone cannons, Oerlikon air defense system. I feel like the rebounds need a redesign because there are some cooler turrets currently extant being made by Rheinmetall that may just not be used on U.S. Navy ships, but do the same job as this rebound PDT in the real world. Those would be hella cool to have in this game. But we got the Stonewall, which is like a ZU-23-4, like a Shilka maybe. Stonewall PDT, 4-barrel. And again, it's targeting the entire missile raid. So it's putting a wall of explosives between the threat and the defended ship. These are cool. These are I like the Stonewalls, but they're quite expensive. A dedicated Stonewall destroyer also requires ammunition storage for it and yada yada yada. Right? Like the Aurora is cool, but quite expensive and energy intensive as a tactical laser that targets incoming missiles. And then there's this Sarissa, which is Sandshot. It's firing like minuscule projectiles, little tiny particles at really high velocity. So they have this incredible amount of kinetic energy when they strike. Very expensive, but can target a missile quite far out. At 5 meter accuracy at 6 kilometers. So this is going to hit. It's intended to hit class 3 missiles in or just before their sprint stage, which my Tilly missiles do just fine. But these are sort of the new options for defending against missile threats. So I didn't put any of those on the ship. I just put on Defenders because anything that gets through the Tillium is likely just going to be fodder for Defenders. I'm more worried about keeping the Defenders radars able to lock onto targets, and there are now missiles that have. You want to talk like weird stuff? There are missiles that have. Where is this here? Self-screening jammers and boosted self-screening jammers. So the missiles themselves can jam the point defense on the target, and that's going to cause all manner of fuckery.
It's all an illusion. Brilliant.
Exactly. Or as I like to call it, the art of fuckery.
You worry about jamming missiles that are jamming you. Like it's a lot of EWAR. It's a lot of EWAR with this update. I'm quite pleased with it, and there are some indications in the copy. Don't remember offhand which one, but there are some indications in the copy that fighters are coming. That we will at some point have, I would assume Bay-launched, I think, fighters, maybe new ship class carriers. I do know there's a new faction in the works, like all new ship types, because these ships are getting pretty stale. But that obviously will take some time. I took a look at how much work it is to design a ship because I wanted to design some ships, and it's a lot of work, folks. So will Postmodern Cowboy be designing his own ships? Maybe I gotta figure out like lighting. It's all about the like object lighting and the different color layers and texture layers that go into making that happen, the mats. Anyway, so the command cruiser, the Michael Collins. Oh yeah, the names here, we got the Ned Broy and Intel, Harry Boland and EWAR. We got the Tom Cullen on interception and screening, and the Michael Collins as an Intel cruiser. And notice, like, this is an entirely intelligence-focused fleet. We've got an Intel ship, we've got an EWAR frigate, and we get a command cruiser. And it works, you know, don't ask me why, but it works. I give up 2 slots. I give up 2 large slots that could otherwise be used to inflict damage, and instead I dedicate them to the Pinard's electronic support missile module. Pinard, really simply, one above, one below, will triangulate, well, biangulate track and give you a really good fix on where it might be well before you come into contact with the enemy. It uses other forms of data to sort of collate and fix the enemy, or at least, you know, get a like purple floaty question mark on where you think they might be, which that's useful at the beginning of a match. That's super useful. Oh, there's one going high. Oh, there's 2 going low. Like, I can see that. And, you know, again, nothing I have in my fleet is really built around doing damage. Damage is a secondary function to figuring shit out. But in the spirit of that, I do some damage. We got 24 of the, we've got 10 Hurleys on this ship. So all 10 Hurleys, I think, in the fleet are on this vessel. And a bunch of anti-missile missiles and some shillelaghs. And of course, decoys. There are many new types of decoy. We do have bullseye radar, so this ship will paint up a target, and spotlight illuminator, so it'll paint up a target on 2 bands. So like it's getting a good radar fix. It can lock on, and it can really like illuminate the target, boosting the target's radar signature, making it easier to see, and making it easier for missiles to hit theoretically. And I think other weapons in the fleet as well. Like I haven't bothered testing, nor have I asked, but I do believe that if you spotlit something, other people's weapons work on it too. But this ship has Citadel CIC. It's got an intel center and analysis annex supporting the intelligence center, so we can figure out what the tracks are faster. Large damage control locker, actually 2 large damage control lockers because I like staying alive. A damage control central. Basically, damage control can keep this ship in flank speed because it is using the radar drive constantly. The ship can just like remain in flank speed, and like it's very fast. It's quite punchy. You know, it's not super heavily armed, but these missiles, provided that I hit with them, provided that I use the other EWAR capabilities in the fleet to push stuff through enemy defenses at the right time, in the right way, I've definitely got some kills with it so far. That's what I'll say. Reinforced thruster nozzles, again, reducing that damage in the flank speed. New missile parallel interface. So I decided to put on, so it's also got some bonuses to like missile programming speed. That's after you give the fire command, how long or short the lag time is between command and event. And the programming bus allows multiple missiles to be programmed at once. So I think the ship can launch 6. Most ships, I think, in the fleet launch 4 at a time. This ship can launch 6 at a time, I think is what that means. Frontline radar again, microreactor, adaptive radar receiver again, just a smart ship. So that's my fleet. And it worked really well. In multiplayer, when I actually got in, I was just able to sail around. I didn't do the most damage in the match. Somebody else did 30,000 damage. I think I did 7,000. But it was all critical damage. It was all damage at critical moments where, had there not been someone else present to dogpile the enemy, they might have slunk away, got to repair, done something, got a critical hit on someone's engines, overloaded one ship with shillelaghs. Like, these things work. These strategies work. And part of the joy of playing Nebulous is being able to figure these things out in real time, to assess the viability of a strategy as you're implementing it, and then to go back to the drawing boards and try different fleets, different tactics, different formations, different everything. There's a million different ways to play this game. There's probably 200 billion different ways to play this game, but the point stands. It is a lot of customization and intricate management without a lot of micromanagement. It's not a micro heavy game. It's a very it's been a long time since I've played a real-time tactics game with this elegance and design. Anyway, that's the Modular Missiles update from Nebulous Fleet Command. I just wanted to give you all an update of what I've been working on, of what my fleet looks like. I hope to see some of y'all playing the game. One of my Steam friends asked me how the game was because he saw me like clocking hours in it. I wound up buying it. It's on sale right now, I think 20% off on Steam, so that's like $19 Canadian. You can't really say no to that. Like that is a good price for a game this complex, and there's a lot of people playing. The servers are bumping. There's no sign of a major slowdown, and as new content comes along, I actually expect the player base to grow because this game right here is a keeper. Okay, well that's all for me for now. This has been Postmodern Cowboy playing Nebulous Fleet Command. If you like watching me play video games, if you like these little reviews, please subscribe to my channel. Throw me a follow. Follow me on Twitter. That's Pomo_Cowboy. Facebook, KB Metcalf. Yeah. See you in space.